My name is Jessica Dykes. Did you know that more than 10,000 fatalities are caused each year by people who choose to drink and then get behind the wheel of a car? One of the more recent and widely covered cases of a drunken or impaired driver injuring or killing someone was the case of Stuart and Karen Irby in Jackson in 2009. While there were possibly other factors that contributed to the accident, it was determined that My name is Jessica Dykes. Did you know that more than 10,000 fatalities are caused each year by people who choose to drink and then get behind the wheel of a car? One of the more recent and widely covered cases of a drunken or impaired driver injuring or killing someone was the case of Stuart and Karen Irby in Jackson in 2009. While there were possibly other factors that contributed to the accident, it was determined that the driver had been drinking and was impaired, which caused the deaths of an innocent driver and his passenger. Another recent example was the case of a young man from Hattiesburg who was driving recklessly after consuming alcohol that night. His BAC was twice the legal limit at the time of his accident. His decision to get behind the wheel cost a woman and her unborn child their lives. People driving after they have been drinking are a growing problem in the U.S. While most people think of the physical or monetary losses that are possible, the greatest risk that is taken by a drunk driver is that they are risking their lives and the lives of others they share the road with. The risk of personal injury or death is the greatest risk a drunken or impaired driver can take. A driver with a blood alcohol content of 0.08, which is the legal limit, is 11 times more likely to be involved in a fatal car accident than someone who had not had any alcohol. From this information, you can also gather that even a person who has had only 2 to 3 drinks and possibly half of the blood alcohol limit of 0.03 and 0.04 is still 5 to 6 times more likely to be an accident than someone who hadn't had anything to drink. This indicates that even drinking small amounts and driving is still increasing your risk of having an accident tremendously. If the risk of personal injury is not enough to convince you that you shouldn't be driving after drinking, just imagine the lives of the passengers in your car that you are taking into your hands. By drinking and driving while you have other passengers, you double or even triple the possibility of injury or death due to your decision to drive. Combined, the two risks above present a great danger. These lives are directly in the hands of the driver, so you shouldn't take that responsibility lightly. The risk is even heightened by the fact that anyone you meet along the way is also at risk due to your impairment and inability to fully control your vehicle. One of the biggest things you can do to reduce the risk associated with drinking and driving would be to not get behind the wheel after drinking at all. There are other options that you could take that would guarantee you could drink safely, as well as arrive at your intended destination alive. One of the most common methods of ensuring your safety after a night of drinking would be to plan ahead and make sure you have a designated driver that is completely sober. You could plan to have someone pick you up when you are ready to leave if you are going somewhere that you know you will be drinking and may not be able to drive yourself safely. You could also carpool with friends who have a designated driver. That way both you and your friends would benefit from having a safe ride home. The right to drink alcohol also carries with it the responsibility to manage it maturely and know your own limits. Drinking responsibly is something that you should always take into consideration. If you must drive yourself, you should make sure that if you have a drink that you wait several hours after drinking before you attempt to drive. You should also be able to recognize when you've had too many to drink to safely drive. This is the point at which you should seek another ride home and make the decision to not drive. This can be a hard decision to make if you don't decide on this in advance, because if you wait until after you have been drinking, your judgment will already be impaired and you may not make the wisest choice. You should know how many you can safely handle and how many drinks you can safely recover from in a given time period. If you have reached that point that you've decided that you can no longer safely drive, you should choose from your other options to ensure you arrive safely to your destination. If you are not in the position to drive, you should make plans to stay where you are. If you are with friends, you should try to spend the night with them and leave the next morning after the effects of drinking have worn off. If all else fails and you've driven somewhere alone and are stranded, just sleep it off in your car for the night. This may not be the most optimal solution, you may not be the most comfortable, and you may be late for whatever you had planned the next day, but you will avoid the risk of injuring or killing yourself or others by attempting to drink and drive. Nationally, there are hundreds of designated driver hotlines that have been set up to be available to anyone who has had too many to drink. This is a preventative to give drinkers a safer option to get home to keep them from driving themselves. While in our area there may not be as many resources such as this in smaller towns, there are still options to consider that would be much better than risking your life or the lives of others. Raising awareness of the options people have in the situations can greatly reduce the number of alcohol-related car accidents. Some have no idea of the options available to them if they're unable to safely drive themselves. Many people are willing to help you arrive home safely because not only do they keep you from risking your life if they help, but they also protect anyone else on the road that could have possibly been harmed by a drunk driver. The next time you go out and have a drink, make sure you drink responsibly and make sure you have a designated driver. Encourage others around you to take the same precautions. Or if you yourself have not been drinking and you see someone else who could use the help, offer to drive them home or at least make sure they're safe for the night.